You wake up before the muezzin's first call, not because you are devout or disciplined, but because the generator died sometime in the night and the fan's gentle whir clicked into a blunt silence that makes the room feel like a sealed trunk. The air is not yet hot, but it carries yesterday's dust as if the city never exhaled. You have not reached for your phone. You have learned to let it lie face down, the battery cold, the geolocation off, the notifications off. You have learned to sleep with shoes by the bed and a headlamp on the doorknob, and your passport folded inside the inner pocket of your jacket, because you never know which door will be the one you have to cross in a hurry. You have learned to wake at the sound of boots in the hall and to distinguish them from the slippers of your neighbors. Today you roll to the edge of the mattress and listen for water in the tank. The pipes spit like stubborn cats. You fill a kettle and watch the stream turn from cloudy to less cloudy, and you add a pinch of the purification powder that leaves a metallic taste that you cannot name except to call it safety. The guest house keeper knocks once. He never knocks twice. You open the door and he glances at your shoes, at your bag, at the jacket you will not take off until the debrief is over tonight, if there is a debrief tonight. His look says, "You are going out." Your look says, "You know I am." You hand him the envelope of rent in local currency because cash is memory and electronic payments are an invitation. He counts quickly, eyes flicking to your face, not because he doubts you, but because he needs to catalog your expression, to store it for the days when one of you will speak the other's name at a checkpoint and hope it still means something. He thanks you with a tilt of the head, then steps aside for the guard in the courtyard to pass by. The guard scratches behind his ear with the hand that is not on the handle of the old rifle. He nods without stopping. The rifle has a personality, a pedigree of dents and replacements. It made you uncomfortable at first. It still does. But now the discomfort stays inside your ribs like a sparrow that refuses to leave. Breakfast is whatever the bazaar sent yesterday. Flatbread wrapped in newspaper that casts ink onto your thumb, eggs with a shadowy yolk, tea that tells the truth about the kettle. You eat in alternating bites with your eyes on the metal gate, the gate you could sketch from memory, every weld an island of silver, every rust stain a small geography. Your phone stays dark. When you finished the security briefing last month, the visiting trainer told you that phone habits are like fingerprints. Your habits will out you faster than your ID. He said, "Send nothing you are not willing to see on a projector in a room of men you cannot identify." He said, "Predictable routes are an addiction, and like all addictions, they feel like relief until the moment they do not." You nodded along. You knew all this already. He was right anyway. Your first ride is not the real ride. It is the decoy you use to float to the meeting point, which is not the real meeting point. That one will appear in a message from a number you delete after the second car door clicks shut. The house manager hands you a folded scrap of cardboard cut from a detergent box. The outside says, "Lemon Scent." On the inside, he has written the first driver's name, a short alias, more like a sound than a word, and the make of a car you still do not trust, even though it has carried you across the city again and again. The guard draws the bolt on the gate, and you step into a morning that smells like coal, engine oil, and damp cotton. You are not thinking about danger. You are thinking about vocabulary, about the distinction between a patrol and a convoy, between a search and a raid, between an agreement and an understanding. Translation is decision-making. It is surgery with words. When someone says, "We will see," you think about whether the phrase implies polite dismissal or delayed consent. When someone says, "It is complicated," you decide whether to deliver the texture of reluctance or the friction of warning. The first driver is tall and thin, with a square of sunburn across his nose like a stamp. He has a white scarf wrapped loose around his throat, and he keeps his eyes moving, not out of fear, but out of a professional commitment to curiosity. You show him the cardboard, and he removes it from your hand with 2 fingers and tucks it into the visor, as if it were a talisman. He names a street you recognize and another you do not. You shrug. He shrugs back. That is the conversation. You settle into the back seat, drop your bag by your foot, and slide the rear window open by a hand's width. Air barges in with a grit that catches on your teeth. It is still early enough for children with backpacks to walk in clusters, their voices a warm ribbon that goes on until a motorbike cuts through and the ribbon frays. Your driver keeps 2 meters from the car ahead, by habit, as if the distance itself could plead with fate. At the checkpoint, he speaks for you. This is part of your arrangement. In most places, a local voice is less conspicuous than your tongue, cleaner than your accent, safer than your attempt to match the day's favored register. He says you are a teacher, or a cousin, or a notary, depending on the guard's boots and the time of week and whatever rumor is in the air. You are none of those things, and the guard knows everyone is pretending, but he appreciates a good story told well, and you appreciate that stories still have currency. The guard asks what you teach, and the driver says, penmanship. The guard laughs, and you are through. It is not always like this. It is like this today. You swallow a second cup of air. You change cars twice because you have a meeting with an international team at a compound that does not like to be found, and a site visit immediately after with local elders who do not like to be kept waiting. You are paid to make one world comprehensible to another without erasing the parts that are meant to be friction. Your body is a bridge, and bridges live under stress. The second driver is shorter, his beard oiled, his fingernails clean. He keeps the radio low, a mid-morning call-in show humming beneath the engine. He glances at you in the mirror the way a doctor glances at a patient's shoes, to judge mileage, not style. You hand him a name, a time, a rough quadrant of the city. He hands you nothing. You both understand the price of too much knowing. The compound appears like all compounds do at the last instant, as if the city folds and reveals a crease you did not know was there. The walls are too high, the paint too fresh, the cameras too obvious. The protocol will be the same: bags to the belt, hands out, body scanned, names cross-referenced, your badge validated, your phone left in a locker that smells like winter. Inside, the hallways are narrow, the floor is too clean, and the posters on the walls look like they were printed for a different world and shipped here by mistake. You are escorted to a room where the international team sits around a table with laptops open, one chair left for you that faces the only window. Introductions are brisk. You know some of them by first name, but you will remember them by their tics. The one who tightens the cap on his pen and loosens it again, the one who reads every page out loud, the one who breaks rules in 3-minute increments, then apologizes in the language of urgency. They will never remember your name properly. They will remember you as the translator, which is also what you are. You take a spiral-bound document in English, skim the executive summary, and learn the risk categories that you will have to translate in a way that does not sound like a confession. The phrases stack in your mind: areas of concern, unacceptable loss, significant deterioration, preliminary assumption. Each phrase is a trapdoor if you render it too sharply, a lie if you blur it beyond function. You listen to a briefing on a village where a water project has stalled because the route that was safe last season is unsafe now, because the leader who promised access lost face, because a younger man is making promises he cannot keep, because rumors breed in the shade of broken plans. Your job today is to sit with elders and listen, and then shape what they say into a ledger that can be compared across districts and donors. Your job is to be present without becoming the story. You remind the team that elders do not speak in bullet points, and that the absence of numbers is not the absence of truth. You remind them that in some languages, a refusal is a long road that passes by hospitality first. The team lead nods and asks if you can speed up the narrative. You say you can keep it respectful and efficient. You do not say that speed is not the point. Time here is not a resource. It is a weather system. You all stand. Someone checks a clock. Someone else checks a tracker. The escort returns and walks you out. You collect your phone, and the moment it wakes, the screen crawls with a message that evaporates after you read it. A change of venue for the meeting, a new place that is both more public and less predictable. You text the second driver a single letter that means adjust. He responds with the same letter. Language is sometimes best when it shrinks. The second car pulls away and you enter a river of vehicles that tries to move like a caravan and fails. A street seller approaches the window with paper cones of roasted nuts, his fingers gray with salted ash. You hold up your palm and shake your head. He smiles, not offended, and moves on. Your driver points with his chin. A side road you did not see, a line of trucks that do not belong here, a man on a roof in a posture that pretends to be leisure. You catalog these things not because you are a spy, but because noticing is a duty and a hedge against surprise. You keep count of nothing and everything. You pass a wall with a slogan in careful script. You do not read it out loud. The city hears itself enough. The new venue is the courtyard of a clinic that has a mitten of shade thrown across its entrance by the proud trees in front. Inside the gate, men sit on a low ledge in a semicircle and offer you tea because hospitality is a pressure valve and because every conversation in this place begins with an acknowledgement that you are human. You take the tea. You hold it with both hands and listen to the greetings lift and fall in a rhythm you know and will never own. You wait until the host points to a chair that will mark you as guest but not as leader. You thank the man on your left for the tea even though it was the boy who poured it, because thanks move in a direction here, and you follow the current. The first elder speaks for a long time. He begins with the spring 2 valleys over, and then walks the path of water, crossing through memory and tobacco and family and honor, until he reaches the present, where the pipe lies broken beneath a slab that a truck crushed, and the repair is not permitted, because there is no permit, and no one will sign a permit, because the road belongs to one group and the valves to another, and the work crews belong to both and to neither. He is not asking for a vote or for pity. He is asking you to understand which parts of the situation can move and which are made of stone. You let him finish without interruption, because you have learned that interruption feels like theft. Then you speak in his language to ask a short question whose purpose is not to interrogate, but to give shape to what he has said. Has the young man who made promises come to this courtyard since the day of his last promise? The elder laughs. The men laugh. The young man's cousin coughs. You wait. The elder says the young man will return when the wind returns, and everyone understands how often that is. You take notes in English and in the local tongue, not to show you can, but because thinking in one language too long is like closing one eye for the day. You have learned that people will speak more freely if you are writing by hand, because a pen is honest and a recorder is a trap. You have learned that you cannot write every detail down, and so you write the details that are anchors, the ones that will hold the story in place when you repeat it later to those who have never tasted this tea. You learn that the route that was safe became unsafe because a set of obligations changed hands in the night. You learn that the laborers have families in 2 different districts where the price of wheat diverged, and so the men diverged too, like tributaries splitting on rock. You learn that the older leader who promised access lost face, not because he failed to deliver the road, but because he was seen to ride in the wrong vehicle on the wrong day, and that violations of etiquette can have more gravity than violations of contract. You learn that everyone knows the solution and no one can afford the first step. You do not call this a stalemate. You call it what the elder calls it, a knot. When you translate, you do not shorten and you do not stretch. You keep the order of ideas and change their pace. You use words that will reach across the compound gates, words that will not be mistaken for technical markers, and then filed under the wrong acronym. You say that water wants to travel if we let it. You say that dignity is permitting men to admit a change of mind without loss of honor. You say that a permit is either a door or a wall, and the difference is made of faces. The international team lead listens with his eyes closed because sometimes this is the best way to hear. He asks a question about timing. He asks a question about the work crew's appetite for risk. The appetite is strong, but the menu is expensive. You struggle to convert a joke that relies on a proverb, and so you reach for another proverb that plants the same tree in a different soil. The men nod, not because your proverb is perfect, but because they are grateful for the attempt. The attempt is a bridge, too. The meeting moves like a river around stones, moments of momentum, moments of eddy. At one point, a younger man arrives and hovers in the doorway with shoulders squared in a way that announces career ambition. In another place, in another life, you would dislike him for his polished certainty. Here you acknowledge his risk and speak to him with care, because you have learned that arrogance is sometimes a suit of armor that hides a soft underlayer of fear. He performs friendship with the team lead. He assures everything will be arranged. He mistakes the compound's power for fuel and pours it on himself like a cologne. You translate him faithfully. You do not allow your voice to editorialize. Later, you will render the elder's eye contact into a footnote that is not a footnote at all. When the tea has cooled and the shade has shifted and the stragglers have arrived, the host clears his throat and signals the end with a phrase that weds courtesy to closure. The team lead rises and thanks everyone for their time and patience. He says this in English, and you put it into the local tongue in a way that makes patience sound like endurance and time, like something that belongs to everyone. In the front garden, a line of children watches from behind a hedge. You carry your notebook against your chest with the pages inward, a shield made of paper. You shake hands in the order expected, and each hand has a temperature, a level of grip, a narrative of its own. The boy with the tea tucks the tray under his arm and follows his father out of the gate with the gravity of an apprentice. Outside, the driver returns with a different car. You did not ask him to change vehicles, but he knows when to add a layer of noise to the pattern of your day. He opens the rear door with a gesture that means hurry and also calm yourself. You sit. He pulls away. In the mirror, a motorcycle that was not there a moment ago appears. It could be nothing. It could be something. You look at the driver, and he keeps his face blank in a way that would fool a casual looker and tells you immediately that he is now counting. He turns left where you expected right, and in 3 blocks he turns left again. The motorcycle continues on its original course, uninterested in you or very interested in something else. You do not exhale because you never held your breath. You feel your ribs again, the sparrow awake. Back at the compound, the debrief is scheduled, which is to say, it will happen when the guard at the door is replaced by another guard, and when the inbox of the staff stops blinking long enough to let your words in. You sit in a small room with a whiteboard that has notes from a previous meeting still ghosting the surface. The team lead asks you to summarize. You do. You begin with hospitality because it matters. You move to the not because it matters more. You describe the hierarchy inside the courtyard without naming anyone with a descriptor that could become an accusation if printed later. You translate not just words, but conditions. Who speaks to whom, who looked at the ground, who acknowledged the younger man in the doorway, and who did not. You say the solution is mechanically simple and socially expensive. You say that the young man's promises cannot be banked, and that borrowing against them will mean a debt whose payment must be collected in person. You say the elders will permit a face-saving bridge if the initial act of repair is presented as a neutral service. You do not say the obvious thing, that neutrality here is a moving weather front. The room has air conditioning for a while, and then it does not. Someone jokes about taking a cool shower in the freezer. You smile because it is easier than explaining how humor works when the stakes are not symmetrical. The logistics officer asks whether the meeting was safe. You say it was respectful, which is not the same word, but it is the right answer. He asks whether you felt threatened. You say you felt like yourself, which is your way of saying that feelings are not the measurement tool you use in your workday. He nods as if he understands. He does, and he does not. You have learned to accept partial understanding with gratitude because fuller understanding often requires harms you will not invite. Lunch is in the small kitchen where someone has laid out bread, rice, a stew, with a name that has no English twin. You eat quickly because food has become fuel, not ritual, and because every minute the driver waits in the sun is a minute you owe him. Your phone remains quiet. The quiet is both comfort and question. You take a bottle of water from the shelf and tuck it into your bag because thirst is a decision you can make earlier in the day. You wash your hands with cold water that runs for a while and then decides it has done enough. A colleague asks you how your family is. You say they are fine. You do not say that you worry every day about the cousin who believes the internet is a window that lets air in without letting anything out, or about the aunt who is proud and will not allow anyone to carry her groceries from the market, and so walks across a narrow bridge every afternoon that is not meant for feet. The afternoon is set aside for a training session for local staff who will be given phones with a data entry app and told to record answers to standardized questions. You are there to make sure the questions are not an insult, that they do not ask what cannot be asked, that the grammar of curiosity does not become the grammar of intrusion. You begin by telling the trainees that a question is a door and that some doors squeak and some doors are painted and some doors lead to rooms no one wants to enter. You say ask with a wrist, not a fist. They smile at the metaphor and then frown because metaphors are a luxury here and you promised concrete instructions. You give them concrete instructions. You say, never start with why. You say, begin with what has happened, then move to what will happen, then to what people hope will happen. You say, if you must count, count the same way every time, but do not mistake the number for a truth the way a child mistakes a silver coin for the moon. A commotion in the hallway interrupts your flow. You step into the corridor and meet the glare of late afternoon in the courtyard. 2 men from the city office have arrived unscheduled, badges pinned to their lapels, one of them already sweating through his collar, the other with a practiced smile that makes every word he says appear to have been said before. They are here to verify something. They are here to remind the compound that verification will continue indefinitely like weather. The security officer steps out of his room with a folder tucked under his elbow and tries to look both casual and in charge. You stand aside. The men speak in the language of polite pressure. They need to look at staff rosters and vehicle logs. They require a list of local hires and their addresses. You translate the first part and refuse to translate the second, not rudely, but by choosing to emphasize the policy that says local addresses are not stored here, that personal details are not accessible from this office. This is both true and an act of small mercy. The man with the smile tries another angle. He says he is sure someone has what he needs. You say the policy is the policy. Your voice is bland. The security officer clears his throat and asks everyone to move inside to the small conference room. The badge men follow with a sigh that is supposed to sound like patience. Outside, the shade has shifted again, and the clinic across the street is receiving a new line of patients whose faces say nothing anyone will remember. You remain through the verification ordeal and help make the words long where needed and short where needed. This is a part of the work that no job description advertises, constructing a membrane between institutions so that fluids can pass, but not poisons. You are good at it because you believe the membrane should exist, and because you can hold 2 heads in your one head. You think about what you have not told the team because you do not want to scare them. The cousin of the younger man in the courtyard is rumored to have a new set of friends, and the set of friends is rumored to have a new set of goals, and the goals are the kind that chew. You think about the elder who laughed when you asked about return visits. You think about the boy with the tea, about how seriously he watched the men's hands. You think about words you refused to write in your notebook because writing them would sponsor them. By the time the badge men leave, the day has entered its brittle period. The light becomes thin and sharp. People hurry in a way that is not quite a run. Your driver appears without calling you, as if pulled in by a thread. He has water for you. He does not hand it to you until you are both in the car with the door shut. You drink. It tastes like the kettle at dawn, but colder, the metallic tang of preventive care. He starts the engine, and you both sit for a moment while a truck inches past, too close, the driver drumming his fingers on the wheel to whatever song lives inside his head. You plan the route home, which is not the same route you used this morning, and then you plan the alternate route in case the first one fills with too many truths. Traffic is mathematical at this hour, dense and solvable if you have the right teacher. Your driver is a teacher. He instructs the flow with gestures that are not rude but assertive, and offers tiny apologies with the horn when he takes a chance that works. You watch faces in other cars, small islands moving parallel to your island. You see a man in a suit with a crease so sharp you could cut fruit with it, his jaw set, a bruise of worry between his eyes. You see a woman balancing a bundle on her lap and counting seconds with the fine muscles around her mouth. You see a boy asleep against a window, open-mouthed, hair damp with heat, the car seatbelt crossed over his chest like a sash. Everyone is going where they must go. No one is where they would like to be. You remind yourself that desire is a luxury of safety, and safety is a season here, not a climate. A corner you usually avoid is blocked. Men stand around the obstacle that blocks it and talk with the determined calm of people who have decided anger would cost more than it would return. Your driver takes a side street that narrows, then narrows again, until the road becomes a negotiation. A woman steps aside with a basin of laundry balanced as if glued to her palm. A rooster unfolds itself from under a cart and struts across your path, lord of this half-minute. The car dips into a pothole and emerges with a thunk that the driver feels in his molars. He looks apologetically at you in the mirror. You shake your head. It is fine. Nothing is fine. Everything is manageable. A boy with an armful of phone cases catches your eye and mimes a sale. You smile and shake your head. He shrugs and keeps moving, an entrepreneur of small rectangles and big hopes. The gate of your guest house has a new scratch. The guard points at it as if it were a sign that could be misread. You nod. He nods. Inside, the courtyard smells like the hose water that someone used to settle the dust. You climb the stairs two at a time because a habit you started months ago feels like insurance. In your room, the air has warmed. You switch on the small unit that will cough itself awake and try to cool what does not want to be cooled. You wash your hands and face not out of superstition, but because the sensation resets your day. You unwrap a sweet from a metal tin, a gift from a colleague's spouse, cinnamon, and something else that reminds you of a childhood you can love without wanting back. You sit at the desk and open your notebook. The day must become sentences that can be sent to people who will never sit in that clinic courtyard and who will never understand the way the tea smelled like afternoon. You write without embellishment. You write the not. You write the cost. You write the conditions for an acceptable start to a repair that will be framed as a maintenance action, not a political victory. You write that the younger man's promises are foam, and that foam is not water. You write that the elders are willing to receive a crew if the crew arrives with the right order of greetings, and with the recognition that the old leader's face must not be scraped again. You do not write the joke that made everyone laugh. You do not write the proverb you used to replace the proverb you could not translate. You write about dignity the way engineers write about torque. You do not write about fear. Fear is always implied. Halfway through your report, the power flickers, returns, departs again. The generator below catches, fails, coughs back to life. You learn to measure electricity with your shoulders, the way they drop when the unit hums, the way they rise when the fan coasts down. You tap your pen against the page, and you keep going. The message you have to send is long and will be cut into shorter segments by a colleague tomorrow for consumption by people who are counting money, not minutes. You forgive them in advance. You chew the last of the sweet and chase it with a sip of water that still tastes like safety and metal. Your phone stays dim. The house manager knocks once. You open the door, and he gives you a small envelope with your name written in a careful, schoolhouse hand. He does not look at your face while you read, because he has decided to pretend he is delivering a menu. Inside, a short request. Can you accompany the team tomorrow to another meeting where your presence will be helpful? Can you prepare a short map of phrases that will reduce friction? Can you consider how to describe a delay without implying a lie? You write a yes on the same scrap, fold it, give it back. He nods and says the cook has made something simple. He says simple, like a blessing. You say you will be down in a half hour. He says take your time, which is funny, and you both pretend it is not. You finish your report and send it through a channel that you trust the way you trust ice, enough to step on, never enough to dance. You package your notes in a string that makes sense, even if one bead falls away. You include one recommendation you know will be ignored because it requires patience, and you include one recommendation you know will be adopted because it sounds like action. You tell yourself that each word you set on the page is a brick that will hold something up for someone else's day. This is the bargain you made with yourself when you started. You will not measure your worth by the number of problems solved, but by the number of problems named without harm. Downstairs, dinner is shared among strangers who would have been strangers in any other country, and who here must become a tribe for a few hours each night. The table smells like cilantro and stove gas. The conversation begins with a gratitude, no incidents today, and moves to a complaint. No, not a complaint, a list of friction points, and then eventually it hushes into the kind of quiet that is not silence, but détente. You answer the polite questions about your day with a neutrality that earned you your job and will keep it. You ask about someone's child far away. You ask about someone's mother. You let the answers arrive without following them into the places you cannot safely go. Later, you wash your plate with water that may have been boiled or may not have been, and you stand by the open window to let the air replace the rooms in your lungs. Night belongs to memory and rumor. The city hums differently. You can hear the road as a stringed instrument being plucked by a distracted player. You lock your door and then unlock it again and then lock it again, because rituals like this are not superstition. They are handles that you hold to carry the day across the room and put it down. You inventory your bag, notebook, pen, a second pen, a laminated card with a phone number you will pretend to forget, a folded scarf, the small sealed packet that says it is for emergencies and that you have never once opened because you cannot decide whether opening it would make the emergency more likely. You sit on the edge of the bed and take off your shoes, but you do not move them far. You tell yourself you will read 3 pages of a novel that has nothing to do with this place, and you will fall asleep on the second page because your mind is tired enough to forgive itself for not finishing anything that does not shout. You think about the people who believe this job is glamorous because it comes with an aura of foreignness, because it lets you walk through gates, because it lets you shake hands that others will never shake. You think about how easy it is to overestimate the power of access and underestimate the weight of responsibility. You think about the young man in the doorway and his practiced smile and the loudness of his ambition. You think about the elder who laughed and the way he said the wind will return. You think about the boy with the tea and how careful he was with the tray, how the cups did not clink, how he watched you when you translated the joke. And for a moment, you worry about what he learned. You worry about what all children learn by listening to the edges of adult speech. The day sifts through your head, and what remains are not the checkpoints or the decoy cars or the taste of the boiled water. What remains is the sensation that your words have lives after you send them, that they walk into rooms you will never enter, and speak with your voice to people who will never learn your name. You have learned to accept this. You have learned that caution is not fear, and prudence is not cowardice, and discretion is not erasure. You have learned that a mismatch in adjectives can ruin men. You have learned that accuracy is not a number on a scale, but a craft that paddles across a river with a current that changes without warning. You have learned that you can be wrong in a way that is clean and right in a way that still injures. You turn off the lamp. The room darkens into a shape you know as if you had carved it. The city continues its midnight work outside, reorganizing itself for the next day's argument. In the near distance, the generator coughs once and then settles into a tone that almost sounds like rain. You breathe with it. The headlamp on the doorknob glows faint, a moth of light. You think of your first day months ago, how you told yourself a story that framed this job as a bridge you would build and walk across with perfect balance. You know better now. The bridge is always swaying, the river is always rising. You do not last here because you are strong. You last because you do not require the world to be gentle before you attempt gentleness. You last because you believe in the worth of carrying meaning from shore to shore, and you are willing to accept that your footprints will wash away before morning. And then there is the truth underneath the daily truths, the one that does not fit into reports or debriefs because it cannot be audited. You stay because you care, and caring is not the same as saving. Caring is waking early to boil water, to fold a map of language into something that can be held, to notice which door stays open, to remember the names of men who spoke softly, to refuse the shortcut that would misrepresent a hesitation as hostility or a delay as malice. Caring is letting the elder finish, listening long enough to find the use in his words. Caring is guarding the dignity of someone you will never see again. Caring is a discipline more than a feeling. At dawn, the city will stretch and pretend it slept well. The same faces will arrange themselves into different formations. The badge men will wake and put on new shirts and choose which tone to use for the day. The international team will open laptops and align their columns. The elders will meet and drink tea and retell a joke that has already been retold. The boy will carry a tray like a coin on the edge of a table. The younger man will change his posture, only slightly. The driver will honk a pattern that means, "I am here." The guest housekeeper will knock once. You will choose your words for another day and accept that they will be insufficient and necessary at the same time. People who imagine this life often imagine the checkpoint first, the rifle in the corner of the eye, the anxiety like a wire pulled taut in the belly. They imagine the risk and assume that risk is the central narrative. It is not. The central narrative is the fatigue that comes from never saying exactly what you think and from never thinking exactly what you feel, from living in the narrow corridor between languages where drafts move, from stitching precision to caution until the seam becomes a scar. The central narrative is that your language does not belong to you here. It is a tool you lend, a tool you clean, a tool you lock away at night. You can do this for a while. Almost everyone can do this for a while. But not everyone can do it every day, and not everyone can do it today. The generator falters again and returns. A mosquito whines near your ear and loses you in the dark. You sleep, and in your sleep, you walk a street that is both the one outside and also not, because dreams love to overlay geography. You carry a cup of tea you cannot spill, and you greet a line of men you cannot name, and the boy watches you, serious as a ledger. When morning comes, You will wake at the first shift in air. You will listen for water. You will tie your shoes in a knot that will not slip. You will put your notebook in your bag, the pen alongside it, the second pen, as a superstition. You will go out again into a day that will ask you to choose between speed and respect, between secrecy and accuracy, between the safety of silence and the duty of witness. You will choose respect. You will choose accuracy. You will choose witness. Whether you can do this again tomorrow is a question you will not ask tonight. If someone were to ask you why a person would not last a day at this, you would not show them the gate or the rifles or the papers on the wall. You would show them the subtle places where willpower erodes, the moment you must translate a phrase that means three things and will be heard as a fourth. The moment a driver turns left without warning, and you must stop your mind from picturing the two roads where you are already dead. The moment an elder tests your patience with a story that feels like a loop until you realize it has become a net. The moment someone you rely on asks for a favor you cannot grant. The moment you recognize that the boy understands the hierarchy better than you do. You would show them the way words weigh more here. You would show them the way each sentence leaves a mark and the way marks add up. You will brush your teeth with water poured from a bottle and spit into a sink that refuses to drain quickly, as if the city needs a second look at everything you discard. You will watch the sky lighten from gray to gray-blue, a careful decision, and the first call will float like a seam opening. You will shoulder your bag and step into the corridor and lock your door and put the key in the place you always put it, and tell yourself that routine is not a trap if you can still break it when you need to. You will descend the stairs and nod at the guard, and he will lift the latch on the gate, and you will enter again into a place that asks nothing and everything, a place that does not promise you a return. You will do your work. You will do it well. You will live, for this one day at least, on the faith that language can still carve out a small clearing where people who do not trust each other can be honest for the length of a cup of tea. And if you cannot last, it will not be because you were not brave or not smart or not careful. It will be because the city asks you to hold both water and fire in your hands and to pretend you do not feel the burn. It will be because you are asked to explain men to other men while protecting their pride, and to explain a place to people who want to love it without changing for it. It will be because every choice is a trade, and every trade takes a toll. It will be because care is a resource and your body is a limited one. It will be because even bridges need rest, and riverbeds are not obligated to be kind. Night will come again, as it always does, and you will lie on your back and count the seconds between generator coughs and street sounds, and you will tell yourself that you can do this one more day, and maybe you can, and maybe you cannot. And either way, the boy will carry the tea with both hands, the elders will wait for the wind, the younger man will polish his smile, the badge men will iron their collars, the team will open their laptops, the driver will honk a pattern that sounds like a word you cannot quite catch. The guest house keeper will knock once, and you will open the door.